Imagine this. 49 Afrikaner families vanish overnight, abandoning their farms, their homes, their entire lives in South Africa, to start over in a foreign land. Not because they wanted to, but because they felt they had to. They fled to the United States, convinced their land would be taken, their safety wasn't guaranteed, and their future was collapsing. But here's the twist. South Africa's own agriculture minister says they were never real farmers to begin with. He says their fear is based on lies, and their exodus is a mistake. What if everything we think we know about the story is wrong? What if the truth is even more disturbing than their disappearance? This is not just a story, it's a warning. Stay with us. South Africa's farmlands are not just stretches of soil and crops. They are living, breathing testaments to resilience, heritage, and controversy. On June 26, 2025, in the heart of the Free State, at a major farming event in Bothaville, Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen delivered a message that struck a chord with many, and perhaps unsettled others. He spoke candidly about the departure of 49 Afrikaner families who recently emigrated to the United States, a decision he questioned publicly. He praised those who chose to stay and invest in South Africa's agricultural future. But behind his remarks lies a story layered with history, fear, politics, and the deep emotional ties people have to the land. Today, we take a closer look at this event, not just at what Steenhuisen said, but at what it means. Why did these families really leave? Are their fears justified? And what does this say about the state of farming and land rights in South Africa today? Let's begin with a bit of context. The story of land in South Africa is long, painful, and deeply political. For centuries, land ownership was unequal, with colonialism and apartheid dispossessing Black South Africans while concentrating land in the hands of a minority. After 1994, the new democratic government promised land reform, but progress has been slow and uneven, leaving many disillusioned. On one hand, there are those who feel land reform hasn't gone far enough. On the other, many farmers, particularly white Afrikaner ones, worry about what the future holds for their land and livelihoods. The fear isn't new. Over the past 2 decades, thousands of white South African farmers have left the country, driven by fears over safety, political rhetoric, and uncertainty around land reform policies. Crime in rural areas, particularly farm attacks, has fueled that anxiety. And the government's past discussions around land expropriation without compensation added to the unease, even if such measures have not been widely implemented. Now fast forward to 2025. Minister John Steenhuisen, once leader of the Democratic Alliance and now heading the Ministry of Agriculture, has taken a more pragmatic approach. He insists the government is not seizing land unlawfully. At Bothaville, he went further. He questioned whether the 49 families who left were even real farmers. According to him, none of the genuine farmers he spoke with at the event expressed a desire to leave. He portrayed the emigrants as possibly misinformed or fearful based on rumors rather than reality. His comments are interesting for several reasons. First, they seem aimed at calming tensions and fears in the farming community. In a country where the memory of Zimbabwe's land seizures still lingers, such reassurance matters. Steenhuisen also emphasized government efforts to help farmers grow and export their products, especially to the United States, an attempt to highlight the opportunities that remain. But his remarks also stirred debate. Because while some see South Africa as a land of opportunity worth fighting for, others see a nation where fear, crime, and instability outweigh any support the government offers. Let's talk about those 49 families. Their move to the United States didn't happen overnight. Emigration is often the result of years of uncertainty and anxiety. Some of these families cited rising crime. Others spoke of the difficulty in accessing loans or securing long-term futures for their children in agriculture. Some feared expropriation, even if no land had been taken from them yet. For them, the threat was not just physical but emotional and psychological. And when the future feels unclear, especially in a sector as volatile as agriculture, leaving may feel like the only rational choice. Still, not everyone shares that perspective. Many farmers are staying and finding success. They are adapting, collaborating with government programs, and even finding new markets abroad. Young Black farmers are entering the scene with fresh ideas and determination. Some white farmers are mentoring them, forming partnerships that a decade ago might have seemed impossible. There is change happening on the ground, but it's uneven and often not visible from the outside.
So, who is right?
Those who leave or those who stay? Maybe that's not the right question. Maybe the better question is, what kind of country do we want South Africa to be? Steenhuisen's comments reflect a government trying to walk a tightrope. On one side, addressing the historical injustices of land dispossession, and on the other, retaining the expertise and investment of those who have worked the land for generations. His message at Bothaville was clear. South Africa's future depends on people staying, not fleeing. But whether the government is doing enough to make that possible is still up for debate. Critics of Steenhuisen argue that dismissing the concerns of those who leave is tone-deaf. These families are not just statistics, they are people who, rightly or wrongly, felt they had no future here. Instead of questioning their authenticity as farmers, some say the government should ask what it failed to offer them. Supporters, meanwhile, see his stance as bold and necessary. They argue that fear-based narratives have held South Africa back and that it's time to shift the national conversation toward optimism and growth. They say we can't let the actions of a few define the entire sector. There's also the international dimension to consider. The fact that these families chose the United States highlights a growing trend. Emigration not just for survival, but for perceived opportunity. This reflects a brain and skills drain that's affecting many sectors beyond agriculture. If South Africa wants to keep its talent, it must create an environment where people feel safe, valued, and hopeful. At the end of the day, farming is not just about crops. It's about identity, belonging, and belief in the future. Whether you're a fourth-generation Afrikaner farmer, a newly settled Black landowner, or a government official trying to build bridges, what unites you is the soil beneath your feet. The question is whether that soil feels like home. As the dust settles on the fields of Bothaville, the debate continues. South Africa stands at a crossroads. The departure of 49 families may seem like a small number in the grand scheme of things, but their story opens a window into a much larger conversation, a conversation about fear, hope, progress, and trust. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think the government is doing enough to support farmers in South Africa? Are the fears of those who left exaggerated, or are they responding to real, growing risks? And most importantly, what would it take for you to stay or to return if you had left?